greater need in Akron that I can't see.
I could eventually, stood up and postured myself in a very prideful way. You kind of lose focus. Sometimes you have to step outside of yourself. And how can we go refocus our attention on how we can serve others in this time?
And so I've just been praying, Lord, how do we see the people that really need the most help? The people that need groceries, the people that need encouragement. And so I thought of camp.
If there's a way for us to engage or to be involved, man, we want to do that. And I think that we've been transparent in some of the different events and activities that we've done, not only from the platform of Love Akron, but what we've been able to do now in partnership with other organizations.
Don't do anything else today. Just make sure that you love Akron.
Make sure that you love Akron.
Whatever you do today, wherever you go today, just make sure that you love Akron.
And early on, one of the things I said to Coach Kemp was, I'm like, I'm an employee of Love Akron. We're going to do this black and white conversation. Conversation versus collision. I said, Coach, if we're going to do this, and then we're going to get to that point where we're just rocking and singing Kumbaya, I was like, then can I respectfully ask you to count me out? Because one, if this is not a forever challenge or assignment, this is not something that we're going to do forever, I just don't want to do it. I want to do something that's going to truly make impact. So I think it's important for us to make note of the fact that this is a commitment of Love Akron forever. Good morning, everyone. Great to see you all. I'm going to ask you to unmute for like 1 minute or 10 seconds. I'd like to, in this COVID season, just give you all the opportunity to just say good morning to each other.
Morning. Good morning, everybody.
Isn't it nice?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Glad to see you all. We are so excited that each of you are here with us this morning. And many of you already know that Love Akron Connect has been a event that was an in-person event before COVID, where we actually brought folks together from the marketplace to sort of build relationships, to serve and to pray with one another, to encourage one another, to live our faith out loud in the marketplace. And so I saw somebody say that they were drinking coffee. So the question is, what are you drinking this morning? You can kind of put that in the chat. This is what happens when Coach Kemp insists that I open, then you get silly in the morning, right? Because really there's nothing in my cup. But I am drinking water this morning. Good morning. You can just put it in the chat what you're drinking and where you're tuning in from. We are so excited to be here with you. And so even though we're virtual now, it still gives us an opportunity to connect with one another. Marketplace folks are doing what we've always done. We're still working, making it happen for our country and our communities. Typically, we have a sponsor that sponsors Love Akron Connect. This morning, we do not have a sponsor, but if you would like to ever sponsor Connect, it's $75. You just email us at our office at loveakronoffice@loveakron.org, loveakronoffice@loveakron.org, and we can get the information to you, and you can sponsor one of these Connect morning breakfasts, gatherings, episodes. We started out the new year talking about hot leadership, and it just caught on so much that we just thought we want to continue to talk about hot leadership. And hot leadership, Coach Kemp often says, it's not in the way I look, right? But it's actually in the way we lead. HOT simply stands for humble, open, and transparent. And so I know Coach is there. I think I want to bring him on for a second and give him 2 minutes to talk about this hot leadership. Look at him, he's shaking his head. But nobody can talk about what it means to be a hot leader. And I'm going to tell you all that Kemp is that for us at Love Akron. He just carries us along. I described to somebody the other day that what we see happening in Love Akron today is like a roller coaster ride. Now, if you don't like roller coasters, then it won't be much of a thrill, but it sort of takes your breath away. We take some dips and we've reached some heights. And I mean, all we do is throw our hands up and, just enjoy the ride. But his leadership has helped us all to become humble, open, and transparent. So I know Lisa Mansfield is coming on. She's our moderator today. She'll tell you a little bit about herself before she dives into interviewing our guests on today. But Coach, if you can just give a shout out and give us a 2-minute elevator speech about what it is to be a hot leader.
Man, thank you so much, Lord, for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. This is a shout out to Justin Hilton, because way back when we were in our office, way back when, he said something that was really profound to me. He said, we talk about leadership a lot, and there's leadership books and leadership seminars and all these things you can go to, but he says, we really never talk about followership. And that really resonated and stuck with me a lot, because I think that that's exactly what hot leadership is about. It's about followership. I want to continue to always posture myself to be humble, open, and transparent, because I came into Love Akron, and really my statement was then and continues to be now, I don't know what I don't know. And I think that is probably the most profound and said statement by some psychologist that says, sometimes as leaders, we go through this process of, man, I gotta fake it until I make it. And really, there's power and empowerment in saying, man, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that right now, or I don't know what it is that we're going to do right now. And I think so many times under that microscope of leadership, we feel like we have to always have the answer. We have to always feel like we know the way or the pathway. And my kind of as God brought it to me, as far as just being high, is also to being comfortable in that crucible of leadership, because it's a place of refinement. It's a place that I think God is continuing to mold me in my leadership, first of all, as a husband in my own home, but also with my children, because it's a part of our being to be that leader. And we're constantly becoming that hot leader. And remaining humble, open, and transparent is very significant to me. Even as I lead Love Akron, because I have really great people around me, like Lori Porter, who she calls me boss, and that's a very humbling thing, just because Lori, you can't tell, but she's my elder, and so culturally, that's a tough thing for her to call me boss, and I've had to adjust and get used to that. However, at the same time, we do it from a team approach. I don't lead Love Akron on my own. I lead it with a team and a group of people. But also, if we're talking about Love Akron going from being a noun to a verb, then it's going to take all you all as well to help us to do that. And so this is not a one-man band by any stretch of the imagination. And so I'm excited about hearing from different leaders of how they've helped to guide their teams throughout, adversity and kind of this season of being in pandemics, and how they remain hot, humble, open, and transparent. So that's kind of my spiel. Thank you, everybody, for being on early this morning. So I know all of you are probably up at 5:30 anyway, because there's a lot of leaders on this call. So I think leaders are up at the crack of dawn if you're sleeping at all. So thank you so much, and I appreciate what God is doing in the midst of us, and especially within our city.
Thank you, Coach. We appreciate that. Well, we're not going to delay anything this early morning. I will say that as a part of what we've always done with Love Akron Connect, there's always been an opportunity for marketplace leaders to pray together. And so even though we're virtual, we found a way. And at the end, we're going to break out. And those of you that would like to stay and break out and have someone pray for you, or just to be a part of a time of prayer for 10 minutes, we're going to invite you to stay in with us, and we're going to break out at about 7:50 just for 10 minutes of prayer before we close out this morning. Well, Lisa Mansfield, I'm going to let her tell you who she is and what she does, because I didn't really know. Lisa wears so many hats, and she's a friend to so many of us. But Lisa, we are glad to have you, and thank you for taking on the charge this morning of moderating our hot leadership discussion.
Good morning. Well, those of you who know Coach Kemp personally know that if he asks, you don't say no. So there is no. There is always a coaxing if you think you've even said no. So I am not a morning person, so bear with me, especially if I'm reading lovely words that aren't mine. I might stumble a bit this morning, but my name is Lisa Mansfield. I work for Judge Stormer's Probate Court and Community Outreach, and I'm on the Akron School Board. So there's no job that I have right now that is more humbling than that. The responsibility of the students of Akron and the staff of Akron and their safety, and all the things that have gone into this pandemic have definitely put the H in hot, I'll tell you what. But I have the great honor of moderating some fantastic people who I greatly respect, and so I want to dive into that because I want to hear what they are doing. I miss them, so I'm really glad to have them on today. So you heard a little bit already about the topic of hot leadership, and Coach has challenged all of us in Love Akron to exhibit that in all of our lives, in our leadership and in our home life, just like he said. As Love Akron seeks to enhance the welfare of our city through listening, learning, and leading, it's the unifying of colors, cultures, and congregations of Greater Akron that gives Love Akron the opportunity to make collective impact so that Greater Akron thrives. Nothing better than that. So hot leadership, as we said, isn't just about how we look, but boy, do these three look fantastic this morning. Nor is it the temperature, even though it's going to be a beautiful day for February in Akron, Ohio. But it's about humble, open, and transparent. And today we have three people who fit into this category, and they're no strangers to Love Akron, and hopefully no stranger to you because they are fantastic humans. We have with us today Dan Flowers, the president and CEO of the Akron Canton Regional Food Bank. There's Dan. Jill Colsar, the CEO and of the Akron Area YMCA. And Justin Hilton, the senior administrator in community outreach for Kent State University. And we're so glad to have each of you here with us today, and all of you that have joined us on Facebook or YouTube or here inside Zoom while we talk about being hot leaders. I got muted. There we go. I'm going to start off with Justin this morning, and I'm going to ask you. So 2020. A year like no other, that's for sure what we can say. How would you say that humility in the workplace has impacted your leadership style, especially this year, and your ability to keep your team motivated as you continue to work and reach your goals or mission?
Well, thank you for that question, and appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. Let me first back up and just say that I try and filter everything through love, right? This is Love Akron. That's the reason we're here. This isn't Lead Akron, it's Love Akron. And so I filter things through love because I think love is more important than leading, right? So I think it's easier, to lead and not love than it is to love and not lead. So lovership is actually more important to me than leadership. We all are familiar with that old adage that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So to me, I've actually rephrased that to say people actually do care how much you love, and they love how much you care. People don't care how well you lead until they know that your love will supersede. So for me, I filter everything through love first and foremost. Leadership is secondary to me. Having said that, to answer the question specifically as it pertains to humility, for me, I kind of have a relationship with humility that's like the game of hide and seek. It's like humility seems to hide, and I'm supposed to go seek it, right? And it's difficult because, we all have leadership skills. We all have leadership principles that we use. We all have gifts and talents and all these kinds of things that we employ every single day. And unfortunately, our culture oftentimes is predicated upon results. What kind of results are we getting? What kind of deliverables are we able to achieve? But it seems like when life shows up and it presents its major challenges, that's when humility pops up and says, found you. And it sort of reminds me that I wasn't looking for humility because humility wasn't hiding. I was the one that was actually hiding, and humility found me. Because in those challenging times, I think humility brings me to that precipice where my inabilities meet God's abilities. And in those moments, it's the faith and trust that I have to have in God to move forward. It's the faith and trust I have to have in other people to move forward. So for me, humility comes largely in challenging times like we find ourselves in this pandemic. And that humility requires me to have faith and trust in other people because we all realize that we're all being tested. We're all in the same situation. We're all trying to achieve the same goal, which is to love and care about people. So to the degree that I can do that more humbly is the degree that I can actually have faith and trust in other people and faith and trust in God.
Thank you, Justin. I know that you show that love in everything that you do. One of the things I miss most is a good old hug from Justin whenever I see him. So I'm hoping that when we're back to a little more normal, we can get those going again. I'm going to go over to Jill. Jill, I know that you live that humility every day. I will tell you that there's no one in my leadership background class up 33 that reaches out if you're having a rough time or if you've had a really great thing happen in your life. Jill is one of the first ones to send you a note. So I just want to give her a shout out for that. But Jill, what has this year meant for humility in the workplace for your leadership?
Oh, thanks, Lisa. Appreciate that. And thanks, everyone, for being on the call. I'm actually humbled to be part of this group, to even be thought of as a hot leader. So, again, thank you, Kemp, for thinking of me. I certainly do appreciate that. I think for me, it's really been about listening to understand, as Justin said, about caring, but really listening to our team. It's hard for everyone. And I know everyone on this call that's a leader is understanding that how I view and how I'm experiencing this is maybe different from what my team is experiencing and what they're going through. And so for me, really being willing to listen to understand has been really important, of me being really humble and leading with humility as we move through this, and admitting that it's hard. Though I'm the one that has to lead us through and remain positive and motivated and believe we're going to make it through, it doesn't mean that we're not making tough decisions that are impacting others' lives in a way that we wish it didn't have to. So I think that caring attitude is really important, trying to lift people up. I try, even at the most darkest times, to do that when I can, and being really committed to that. But, for me, I think, too, people have to understand that as a leader, it's not easy for us either. So, though I'm sure sometimes some of my staff team sitting out there think, wow, it must be nice to be her right now. And I have to live with myself. So, one of the things for me certainly is being grounded in my faith journey and praying on things as we're making decisions, and really trying to think, how's that going to impact others? How do we deliver this message in a way that the whole morale of the entire organization isn't going to fall? So I think this being humble has really near and dear to my heart, and I think it's really important for us as leaders in this community to remind ourselves of that. And why I was put here in this position, God really only knows, but I am grateful for the opportunity.
Nothing like 2020 to really make you ponder on that. A leader for just this time. It makes you really, make you look at, why was I chosen to be in this position right now? It definitely gives you that humility. Dan Flowers, wow, what a year it must be for the Akron-Canton Regional Food Bank and all the work and the spotlights that have been put on you. No needs greater. I guess that probably helps a little with humility, but I'd love to hear how it's impacted you this year to be a humble leader.
Well, thanks, Lisa, and good morning, friends. It's great to be together today, seeing so many people that I know and love on the line today. You're right. I mean, certainly we've had a lot of humbling experiences at the food bank this past year. The outpouring of generosity and support we've received has certainly evoked a lot of feelings of humility. Grace beyond words is hard to receive at times, no matter how hard we work. And I think most people that are awake in these jobs feel unworthy at times. Just being in this role has humbled me in a lot of ways. I've heard it said that the pathway to humility often requires humiliation. And I've certainly had more than my share of embarrassing mistakes. Leading people in challenging times like this, there's so many different people that approach work in vastly different ways. And it can get any leader jammed up at times. Certainly, the mistakes I've made throughout my career and in the past year, have helped keep me honest and real with myself in moments that mattered. But I like to think that over the years, I've also grown more aware of myself over the course of my life, maybe hopefully grown a little more gentle with myself and the people around me. And at times, although I feel like I haven't made a lot of progress, I hope that's not the case. Jim Collins talks about level 5 leadership being a paradoxical blend of humility and resolve. And I thought about that a lot this year, recognizing your weaknesses, your shortcomings, your mistakes, and your errors can oftentimes lead you to kind of wonder why you're even in the job at all. But blending that with a resolve to continue, a deep resolve to never quit, to never stop, to believe in yourself and that you're in this position, you were called for a reason, you're there to do it, and you're not gonna quit. And when you combine that kind of humility that opens up space for people with the kind of resolve that makes it so you're just going to be relentless and not stopping, I think you've got a combination that can open up a world to other people around you, keep you checked, but not let you give up either.
Wow, I don't know, Coach. You might have somebody you need to call in to give your halftime speeches. That was a pretty good one. I'm ready to go out there right now.
No quitting.
No, that was fantastic. So let's go back to Jill. So Jill, you kind of touched on just a little bit some of the struggles that have been there this year for you. So when you think in terms of openness as a leader, can you share in some way what those struggles or disappointments or concerns that have helped you through those times this year? And maybe even who do you turn to? Can you talk openly with your staff? Do you have someone that you turn to in your life that helps you with that openness as well?
Sure. I think that when I saw this on kind of questions to consider, this is probably one of the ones that I think is the most difficult. Because again, as you're going through this, there are times where you really can't be open to the extent that you maybe would like. And you're pondering decisions that you may have to make, again, have such a trickle-down effect that they're not the positivity that I live for. I live for, prayer, positivity, and power on. And so being open has been a challenge. And I do have a trusted team of senior leaders that I really do rely on. There's probably two in particular that have really been a sounding board. And I think everyone has to have someone they trust. So I think that if you're a leader or an aspiring leader, that finding your cheerleader or your trust partner is going to be really important, because everyone's going to navigate in leadership very challenging times. This is unprecedented, has been the word of the year, but certainly I think that you're always going to stumble upon those things. And again, for me, it's a process, not perfection. I don't aspire to be perfect. I think as Dan alluded to, we had to learn from our mistakes and our experiences, and I think that's what brought me where I am today, is that I was able to learn from those things and get better and more confident as I went through it. So I think being open during these times has been difficult, and I think that's one of the things sometimes when I look back, I wish I could have been more open, but quite frankly, in the situations that we were faced with, I wasn't able to do that, which is really a little bit counterintuitive for me. But I have found that I really have to think about the impact, and I have to make sure that I have really vetted the whole thing out in front of me before I begin my communications to be open about any decision that we are making. So again, process, not perfection. Trying to always be willing to take the criticism for that, and we've gotten a lot of criticism, I think, as both Dan and Justin have indicated, but learn from those things and how do we get better.
Thank you. That's really honest, and I really appreciate that. Justin, how about you? Community outreach is not the easiest thing to navigate during a pandemic. How do you share? What do you share in those struggles of the disappointments and struggles and concerns that you've had as a leader this year? How have you been open about that?
So again, that's a great question. I think we all realize that if people know me, they understand that I use the term paradox of choice often, right? That our lives seem to be all about choices. Research says we make 35,000 conscious decisions every single day. And that's 12.7 million choices per year. But what's crazy is none of us actually chose to be here. None of us actually chose to exist. So we're placed inside of this life. And the amazing thing about that is it wasn't just happenstance. We all are in this life for a reason. We all have been equipped with seeds of greatness and dreams, and we've all been equipped, right? So the significance of relationships to me is that we were made to share our lives with each other. We were made to be open and transparent so that we can share our struggles, our dreams, our victories with other people so that they can realize I'm not alone. You're struggling with this, I'm struggling with this. And what's interesting is, as much as we're equipped, the thing that we need most, Dan alluded to it, is belief. Like, if we're honest with each other, even the dreams that we want to achieve in life, the goals that we believe that we're here to achieve in life, we struggle with manufacturing the level of belief necessary to actually accomplish that. And so it's so important that we have relationships that we can turn to that are shared with us to help bolster the belief that's necessary for us to actually continue forward and accomplish what it is that we're supposed to accomplish. It's difficult because it's countercultural. It's counterintuitive, as Jill just mentioned. But it's so necessary that we share, literally, that we share what it is that is happening. Very much like Dan mentioned that, you can't have humility without humiliation. You can't have a testimony without a test. Like, you have to go through these challenges so that you actually have substance from which you can speak into other people and give them belief. I often say that I spend my time around three kinds of people. People who are where I'm trying to go so they can help me get there. People who are going in the same direction I'm going so that we can help each other achieve and get there. And people who are trying to get where I'm currently at so that I can turn around and help them. The Bible says there's a safety in a multitude of counselors, and Jill sort of alluded to this. I believe in what's called a board of trustees, a personal board of trustees. I believe we all need to have our own personal boards of trustees, people that we trust, that we connect with, that we're accountable to, that can speak into our lives spiritually, relationally, maritally, professionally, all those areas in which our life is actually divided. We aren't just employees, right? We do work, but we also are husbands and wives and fathers and mothers and uncles and aunts, and we have a physical body, and we have all these things. So I really subscribe to the reality that we all need to have our own personal board of trustees that we can access, that can speak belief into us. And we need to be a member of a board of trustees for other people so that we can speak into their lives as well.
Wow, I hope you guys are really out there taking notes. I wish I'm going to rewatch this when we're all done, because I'm just getting so many great messages out of all of you. I appreciate it so much. Dan, openness, struggles, disappointments, concerns. How has that helped you in your leadership this year, being open?
Well, openness has always come easy to me because I'm just too anxious of a person to not be truthful. And so, I have to share where I'm at with other people because they'll figure it out anyway. And so, I've always, tried to live that way. I think these jobs, there's a real privilege in these jobs because, if you let a little bit of your brokenness out, if you let a little bit of your insecurity out, it can be a real overture to the people around you, because I think people tend to look at folks in leadership jobs and try to see those qualities. And, I think people see people in leadership as oftentimes people to emulate, but they're trying to reconcile their brokenness, their shortcomings, their flaws with this aspiration that they have. And so then when you step into that and admit what you're struggling with or whatever, people see a light in that. And I think it inspires them, But I also think, too, in these jobs, you have to be kind of conscious, especially these days, about, the extent to which you're open. Because I think when you're struggling, you need to have a struggle buddy. My brother is that person for me. We have a daily text thread, and I'm telling you, I straight up rant on Dave. I mean, I'll go off. My worst self comes out in these text threads, and he'll check me. all the time. Like, you got to step back, Dan, think differently about it. And, it's good to have people in your life where you can sometimes, vent your frustrations, and then they can bring you back to reality. Because I'll tell you what you can't do. Go to social media with that. You have to, be careful these days with what you say. And we all have to reconcile, that we go into these positions in our roles and we want to be open and transparent and live out our best selves. But there's always stuff you got to wrestle to the ground. And you need to have safe people in your life that you can do that with to smack you back into reality and get you back out onto the field.
I appreciate that transparency. That's an amazing thing, and it's great. It is great to have that person who you can just totally be yourself with, and I'm so glad that you have that. It's been a little harder in this situation, right? Because we see less people, so we're really been selective about who our person is, and if you're blessed to have that person in your life, that's fantastic. So Dan, I'll let you start off this time. I know you can take a breath there, take a gulp. So what's one thing, we're going to go into overall life now rather than just 2020, although it's hard to think beyond that. What's a life tip that you learned that you wish that everyone in this marketplace who's here today, what's one thing that you would tell them today as they're going back out there that you learned that you wish everyone knew?
Well, this one's easy. Because the number one piece of advice that I give, that I see people ignore the most, is simple. Walk the shop every day. Whatever job you're in, get out and talk to people. You see, the administrative gravity of these jobs is unending. You'll find every excuse to never get up from behind your desk. And I tell people all the time, get out and talk to people. Know everybody. Ask them about their day. Ask them about their weekends, their families. Try to put some love on them, encourage them. And also, by the way, while you're out walking the shop, pay attention to what you see. You'll learn a lot about the business while you're out there, but you got to be visible. Nobody who walks the shop every day and has relationships with people complains about poor communication on an employee satisfaction survey. Because the people that initiate communication don't complain about a lack of it. So you got to get out and make that happen. And there's a adjoining point to that, and which is this: if people feel like you value them, there is no limit to what they'll do for you. If people feel like you don't value them, there is no limit to what they'll do to you. And so, and there's a lot of examples in that. So you got to go out and make people feel like you value them and let it's true, or disregard them to your peril. And that's just how it works.
That's fantastic. So we're going to say walk the shop. That's a great one to take with you today. And that's an easy, doable thing today, right? Each and every one of us can go out and do that today. So I appreciate that. Justin, how about you? What's a life tip? You've given us a couple already today. I love that Board of Trustees idea. I'm gonna start making my list as soon as we get off here. But what's another life tip that you wish you knew or you want to share with this marketplace today?
Dan took all my thunder. So look, for me, Dan actually encapsulated it, and that's loving and valuing people over tasks and execution and deliverables. That is a lesson that I actually had to learn the hard way. I was at Kent State University. We had a vice president. I was the senior associate vice president directly under them. And then I had an associate vice president under me. That associate vice president left the institution to become a vice president somewhere else. So my boss, the vice president, said, Justin, I need you to continue being the senior associate vice president. I need you to also be the interim vice president. And I need you to lead a national search for an associate vice president. So instantly, my workload tripled. Nothing else in my life tripled. I still had the same responsibilities at home, marriage, community, everything was the same, but my workload tripled, right? And my associate vice president who left, he was a master delegator. He would do 4 to 6 meetings every single day. And he would come back to his team and he would delegate those tasks so that those team members could deliver. And it was a well-oiled machine and it was great. I already had 4 to 6 meetings as a senior associate vice president. So now to add 4 to 6 more meetings, I was doing 8. I was trying to figure out how to do 8 to 12 meetings a day. And when I leave a meeting, I have at least 10 action items that I got to execute. So you got 8 to 12 meetings a day. By the time the day is over, you haven't had time to execute on anything. I literally have 100 to-dos every single day by 5:00 p.m. And so what ended up happening is I just became this person, unfortunately, who valued tasks over people. And I've told this story before, but it's so important, I'm gonna tell it again. Tasks over people, that's what I turned into, right? And so the only reason I engaged people was if we could execute on a task. There's a deliverable I need to execute on. Boom, 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 boom. And relationships began to fracture. I became a different person. And it was really an untenable situation. And by the time I realized this, because people that I didn't think I was close to were able to speak into my life. My wife was able to speak in my life, and I had this awareness, and I did 3 things immediately. One is I asked my boss for help. I said, I need help, and she provided that. 2 is I asked my boss for time. I said, there has to be a day when I am completely untouched by another human being. And she granted me that too. And 3, I had to ask forgiveness. I went back to all of those relationships that I have fractured because I put tasks above people, and I had to ask for their forgiveness. And fortunately, they granted it to me. And I learned from that point on, above all else, we have to value people above tasks. They are people who need love and who are designed to love. They're not just employees. We don't just have tasks that we have to deliver. They're people. And so Dan hit it on the head. Value people above all else.
Wow, Justin, that was really one of those tests for your testimony, because that sounds like it was an incredibly tough time in your life. And what a lesson that transactional leadership isn't really leadership. It might be Boston, but it's not leadership, right? And so I really appreciate you sharing that, because that had to be such a struggle, especially for someone who is as relational as you are. I can't imagine how that would be. So, Jill, how about you? What's a tip? The guys have really kind of brought this one to life. So, what is it from your standpoint that you would share that's something that you've learned?
Sure, absolutely, and I agree. Justin and Dan, awesome, great points. I agree. We need to love on each other through these times for sure, and that's really important as leaders that we take time to do that. I think for me, and just being on this call again with all these leaders from the community, is just be true to yourself. I can't be somebody else, and I had to learn that early on. Walking in the footpath of a longtime CEO that was well respected, that I couldn't be him. I had to be true to myself, and I had to be the leader that I needed to be and that I was called to be. And I had to become comfortable with that, that my skills and strengths were different than others, and that I had to really learn how to capitalize on what I do well and understand how that fit into the success of our organization. And it was okay for me to be me and do it my way. So I think this was a lesson that was really important for me to learn. And hopefully I've done that with grace and gratitude as I've gone through that. And then my second thing really is every challenge is an opportunity. And if I have said that once, I've said that a zillion times throughout COVID here. But we've been faced with multiple challenges, all of us have. But if we look at that and really change our attitude about that and see it as an opportunity, what can we do different? What can we do better? How do we get over this barrier? There's really very few brick walls that we can't get over, around, or through as a team. And I think that is really important as you're looking at life, and certainly as life as a leader.
That's fantastic. And I'm glad that you're being Jill, because we like Jill and we like all the things that you bring, because those are amazing things. And I think that today all of you have really shown transparency, right? You've shown us some of your strengths, definitely. You've shown us a little window into what some might consider a weakness, or at least into your vulnerabilities, right? So I think that you've already been incredibly transparent. How is that good for your staff? How does it make you feel when you're faced with that challenge of being transparent? And how in the long run did that have an effect on maybe a relationship or something about your leadership just by having that transparency? Joel, why don't we just stay with you on that?
Sure. So I can probably speak to this one pretty well. Probably when we first started on COVID, definitely I was a cheerleader, and I still am. I believe, as Dan said, I believe we're going to get through this. I believe we'll be a better organization for it. But what I found was that my positivity wasn't really resonating with everyone else. They were going through tough times. They were hitting a brick wall. We were laying people off. People were sick. On and on it went. And I really had to kind of take a gut check and listen to someone who was pretty critical about that, and remind myself that, I need to be more transparent, that I do have rough days. I do have times where I question, where we are, where we're going. And I had to put that vulnerability out there. And I had to appreciate where they were. But acknowledging where they were didn't mean that I wasn't still positive about where we were going and that we would get through this. So having the resolve to do that. But it was hard for me to be transparent about that. I'm a positive person. I believe we are going to get through this. I believe in the power of our faith journey, and I want to motivate and inspire our team. But I had to recognize that not everybody was where I was or where I hoped they would come. But even those individuals that became very critical about that early on, most of them are still with us today and have been very appreciative of the journey we've been on. And I think that's part of it. We've been able to be transparent. This journey has been hard, but it's been a journey, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. It is ongoing, and we're going to be dealing with the, after effects of this probably for many years to come. And what it looks like. So being transparent was hard for me. And again, I got one of those gut checks from one of my fellow staff and had to be a little more open about, how hard this journey has been.
That's great, Jill. Thank you. Justin, how has transparency helped you, and what was challenging about it? I think that when I think of you, I think of someone who I think is fairly transparent. I think that you're honest. I think that you share these vulnerabilities with us. You share your strength. How did that? What is challenging about that to you? And how does that then affect how you lead?
So I think the greatest challenge of it, to be succinct, is the prioritization of it, right? Again, if we're looking in the context of work, right? We're supposed to show up to work and we're supposed to work, right? There's certain hours in which we're supposed to execute. So how do you prioritize transparency when within the work realm, it isn't part of the work culture? It isn't valued in such a way that it's rewarded. It isn't connected to an actual executable deliverable, right? So how do you make time for transparency? That to me is the largest challenge. And I think to the degree that 2020 has been challenging is the degree to which 2020 has shined a light on the absolute necessity of the prioritization of transparency, right? As an African American living through 2020, it is succinctly more than just a pandemic, right? That pandemic has very intentionally shine a light on the disparities that exist between minority and underrepresented, underserved populations. When you look at all the social unrest that happened, when you look at how many Black people were dying at the hands of police, when you look at the rioting, when you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, how it went so global so quickly, when you look at the election season and a change in power, all of those things deeply, deeply, deeply affect who we are as people and as humans, right? It deeply shakes our faith. It deeply shakes those things which we previously held in a certain stability. Now things are unstable. Things are not as easy to forecast. Life has been shifted in a major, major way. And so we can't just show up to work and work, right? We have to make room to be transparent. So one of the things that we've done at Kent State University, and kudos to my leaders, right? Melody Tankersley, our provost, Dana Wallace-Hendrick, my associate vice president that I report to. We make space when we meet. We begin by just doing a check-in. Hey, this is some space for you to just share where you're at, what you're struggling with. What's a single word that describes how you're arriving today? No judgment, just honest transparency and openness. And those have been difficult to hear sometimes, particularly for those of us who desire to help, right? And desire to take hinders and burdens off of people. It's hard to hear the struggle that people are going through, and you're not necessarily in a position to directly help them. But providing an opportunity for them to share and to be transparent is in fact a way to help them. So prioritizing that transparency is absolutely critical and it's absolutely huge. And I think that it has paid tremendous dividends on making people feel as though they're heard, right? They're cared for and they're valued.
Wow. I hate to say that we're really out of time, and I'm going to have to toss it back to Coach. But what an amazing morning it's been so far. I started out this morning going, wow, it's early. This is tough. But thank you all for all of your inspiration and for all that you shared with us today about you as people and you as hot leaders in this community. And with that, I'm going to toss it over to Coach.
Lisa, can I jump in?
Oh, yes, sir.
I don't want to get an answer on that last one, but I planned on sending a shout out to the great Grand Master, Roger Reed, who's on this call this morning. And to any time to have an opportunity to be on the line and say any words with Roger on the line, the great patriarch. I just want to send you some love and respect, sir.
Thanks, Dan. Coach, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to all our panelists. It was, man, so many things run through my mind, and you tend to get a little emotional when you hear some of these things. And, valuing people is such a huge thing, I think, for all of us to remember. And I think that during this season of pandemics, if you will, it's been the great revealer of how much we do value people and also value our time and our space and those type of things. But I do want to just make a quick mention and give a quick amount of acknowledgement to our brother Phil Maynard, who I believe valued people tremendously. He I can remember before I accepted the appointment at Love Akron, he sat down with me and he was open. Some people will be truthful with you, they'll be honest with you, but not everybody's going to be open with you. And he was open with me about the position that I was walking into, so much so that he offered not just advice, but he actually gave me a photo of things he had been working on with another project and said, hey, Kemp, take this and make it run, make it do what it's supposed to do. And, I'll be there with you to support you. And so I just appreciate Brother Phil and how he valued me in those moments, because he made me feel like I was the most important thing. We sat down and talked. And so He's definitely went on to bigger and better things. However, I think I'd be remiss if we're talking about hot leadership and didn't mention him and the legacy that I think he's left for all of us to continue to glean from. And Phil loved Akron. He loved it. He loved everything about it. He loved the development of it. He loved the people of Akron. So just want to say that. Really appreciate everybody being here with us. And I want to encourage all of us to, this is another, if you will, we talk about openness and we talk about being hot. Now we're going to present a platform to you where we're going to break out and we're going to have prayer. Because in a time of like this, we need to be able to pray with one another in agreement. And you may not be comfortable maybe necessarily praying, but being in the midst or the atmosphere of prayer is a blessing. And it's a great thing. And I don't think there's anybody on this call that would say, man, I don't need prayer today, right? I think that we all need prayer. We're all striving to be close in our relationship, not only with God, but also with one another. We're all going through some different things. So I believe, Lord, you're gonna begin to break us out and break us down into different groups, so we can have some time of prayer with one another. And so I encourage you to stick around for that and to partake.
Excellent. Thanks, Coach. I'm just reading in the chat, folks that are watching via Facebook or YouTube or some other social media platform. They're not quite seeing what's in the Zoom, but shout out to Matt Reed from Direction Homes. They're one of our partners. And Matt said this morning, I feel like I've read 3 leadership books in 45 minutes. This is awesome. I concur. So at this time, this is our first time doing this, but our AV team excellence marketing is going to transition us. Susan, wave your hand. Judge Donna Carr is out there, wave your hand. And Tanya Ross Lane is out there. They're going to be leading in our prayer rooms. They have 10 minutes of prayer. Listen, 1 minute of prayer is powerful. We are going to leave here feeling like Superman today, right? Or Superwoman, whichever you prefer. So Sharina's going to break us out, but if those of you that would like to stay for that prayer time, we promise to get you out by 8 o'clock. Please just sit tight. Bumper's going to roll. She's going to send us out. And if any of you must go now, in my Coach Kemp voice, I want to say this to you. If you don't do anything else today, make sure that you love Akron. Sit tight. We'll be right with you for prayer time.
we used to say in church when I was younger, an unspoken request.
I'll go ahead and start. My heart is really heavy this morning about the young children, immigrants that are being put back into these detention centers again. We seem to be doing this regardless of who's in office, placing these children in detention centers. I have visited both Homestead, Florida, and Tornillo, just on the border at El Paso, Texas. And I've seen these facilities, and they are nothing that we would want any of our children. They are not delightful places. And so my heart is very heavy for the 600 that have never found their parents again, and now the over 700 that are entering into these facilities that they're opening back up again, even though it was promised that they wouldn't be. So my heart's thinking a lot about that.
Thank you, Alan. Anybody else have any?
This is Jill. I just certainly would lift up our talking about youth, but our school administrators and the boards. I know, certainly Lisa's part of the Akron School Board, but what they're going through across our areas.
greater need in Akron that I can't see.
I could have eventually, stood up and postured myself in a very prideful way. You kind of lose focus. Sometimes you have to step outside of yourself. And how can we go refocus our attention on how we can serve others in this time?
And so I've just been praying, Lord, how do we see the people that really need the most help? The people that need groceries, the people that need encouragement. And so I thought of camp.
If there's a way for us to engage or to be involved, man, we want to do that. And I think that we've been transparent in some of the different events and activities that we've done, not only from the platform of Love Akron, but what we've been able to do now in partnership with other organizations.
Don't do anything else today.
So thank you.
Just make sure.
And we'll see you all next week.
Love Akron.
Do the Jew. Love Akron.
Whatever you do today, wherever you go today, just make sure that you love Akron.
And early on, one of the things I said to Coach Kemp was, I'm like, I'm an employee of Love Akron. We're going to do this black and white conversation. Conversation versus collision. I said, Coach, if we're going to do this, and then we're going to get to that point where we're just rocking and singing Kumbaya, I was like, then can I respectfully ask that you count me out? Because one, if this is not a forever challenge or assignment, if this is not something that we're going to do forever, I just don't want to do it. I want to do something that's going to truly make impact. So I think it's important for us to make note of the fact that this is a commitment for Love Akron forever.